Hello and welcome to another edition of Photographica Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Without you, this podcast has no meaning. I mean that. And I just wanted to say thanks to Chad Lalong, my old friend who produced the music for this podcast and all the links as well. And you can get in touch with Chad through his Twitter address at Chad Lalong. That is ChadLelong, Chad Lalong. And I just wanted to talk to you about the importance of subscription and rating. We need you to subscribe and rate. This is what we need, because without those, we don't get seen. And the more we get seen, the more we can do. So please, subscribe and rate us if you like what we're doing here. So, thank you very much for listening to Photographica Podcast. On with the show. Hello and welcome to another edition of Photographica, brought to you in association with asprinting.net, and I'm Alex Schneideman. Today I'm interviewing Babycakes Romero. He's a diverse visual artist whose work spans animation, film, TV drama and comedy, as well as street and found object photography. He's also a vinyl DJ and record producer. He's living proof that you can have your artistic cake and eat it. Babycakes Romero's work has many consumers. For instance, he directed a series of short animations for the Spirit Level project, whose aim it is to eradicate economic inequality throughout the world, and at the same time he was directing Michael Fassbender in a comedy series imagining the life of a man who was obsessed with the film 300. But today I want to talk to Babycakes Romero about his viral sensation, The Death of Conversation. This was a series of street photography looking at the way people use their phones instead of communicating with the people around them. The combination of images struck a nerve, and it became a viral sensation across the world, leading to Babycakes Romero appearing on many news channels and culminating in a TED Talk. I want to find out about all of this and what goes on behind the scenes of an artist who spans so many different media. I give you Babycakes Romero. What if there's anything for the future, and of course Death of Conversation and the viralness of that. Babycakes Romero.
Yes.
First of all, thank you very much for having me along today.
No problems.
And I just wanted to start by getting an idea of where you're coming from, because you are all across many of the different media. So although this is, Photographica is about stills photography, you are actually involved in many more. I mean, could you take us through sort of like the breadth of your work?
What it is that I do, yeah. I mean, I do, currently, obviously, primarily photography, but I also make short films. Currently working on a sitcom. I've done animation. I really kind of whatever creative project interests me, or whatever idea I have, and then whatever is the best medium to execute that idea in. So I'm not that specific, other than just I have a slate of things that I want to do, and then I just try and systematically work my way through them.
Right.
So depending on what's taken up the most time, or some projects take years, some are very quick turnarounds. But I would say over the last few years, photography has definitely gone one step ahead of the other stuff in terms of the amount of time.
Stills photography
in terms of the amount of, and mainly street photography. I don't really do much else. I tend to try and just document the life I'm leading, and see where that ends up.
Yeah, and a bit about your background then. I mean, you're London born, and so on. And as far as I know, in your background there isn't a great heritage of visual art. There isn't that. So what led you to where you are now? And that is feel free to dig deep into your biography.
Into my psyche.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was, you know, I always used to draw a lot.
Right.
And I would say drawing was my first foray into...
Do you still draw?
Yeah, hugely, yeah.
Right.
I'm actually working on a project at the moment that involves turning all the drawings I've ever done into short animation. Which is quite an extensive process involving scanning a lot of old notebooks. But it's something that never really left me. But I've never really ever put any of my drawing work out there.
Yeah.
So there comes a time and you just go, why not? You know. So that was what I originally used to do, and I would say my probably earliest inspiration was probably my uncle, who was an art director in the 70s, and he then wanted to become a commercials director, and he married my mum's sister, and I was 5 years old when that happened, I think, and then he used to send me letters, which were these incredible drawings, all these kind of storyboarded letters, and where he kind of just showed aspects of his life, and I was just completely enthralled by these letters. Right. And they were just magnificent.
So they were sort of graphic letters?
Yeah, they're like cartoon strips,
yeah,
but beautifully done. I mean, you know, and we corresponded for a couple of years before we actually even met, and then maybe I would have done it anyway, who knows, but I drew
so
from...
you drew back to him?
Yeah.
As opposed,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I do basically, you know, so for years I just did drawings, mostly kind of freeform, subconscious stuff in terms of I don't ever think ahead. I just put the pen to paper and see what happens.
Right.
And then over the years, you know, I started to get into photography a little bit, probably from about 18 onwards.
Yeah.
And I got given a proper camera, and I went traveling for about a year, and I started taking pictures on 35mm film. And I kind of fell by the wayside a bit because it was prohibitively expensive to develop and buy film. And then digital photography came back in, and I got a digital camera, and it was kind of an epiphany. And
but when you went to university and things like that, what were you thinking you'd be doing?
I always imagined I would make films.
Before you went to university?
Yeah, I mean, I would say cinema was probably my greatest love.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, really probably all I wanted to do.
So do you think your uncle kind of tapped into something that was already there? Or do you think he created something?
I don't think it's possible to create something, but you can definitely, because you either have the skills or you don't.
Yeah.
I have drawing skills. You know,
did it always come naturally to
absolutely.
you?
Absolutely.
Really?
It was just in me, and it pours out. You know, it's not. There's no. But he showed me maybe the possibilities, and I learned how to draw by looking at his drawings.
Yeah.
So that improved my skills, definitely.
So I'm just taking a picture of Babycakes here, as I do in all my in all my interviews, right in the middle of the interview, so you can. So when you went into, I mean, I first knew of your video, you know, like your film work, you know, for example. And we're going to talk about your stills work in a minute, but I just want to go through everything to see how we got to where you are today. Okay, so when you got your first digital camera, was that a stills camera or movie camera? I mean, was it your interest was in moving images or still images at this stage? You know, we're obviously talking way after university.
Yeah, let's think about this. I'm moving images first, absolutely. And like I say, even though I dabbled in photography, I then left it behind and then got, you know, fully into making shorts. And with the arrival of those mini DV cameras, I got one of those. And then I just went off making loads of little shorts. And YouTube arrived, and there was a way to get your work out there. I was also writing screenplays at the time, and I had a screenplay commissioned by a film company, and they paid for me to make a short 10-minute trailer from it. This is in the 90s. And it cost a few grand to make, full crew, shot in Super 16, big ass affair. And then the film kind of got stuck in development hell. I mean, it never got made, it's the story of most films. But I really didn't enjoy the process of the circus. I didn't really enjoy this, so I really love this DIY approach when it just be you and a camera and you could just get on with it and it didn't cost any money, you didn't have to wait for anyone. I mean, it took me one day to shoot that film, it took me a year to finish it, to get favours in post-production and in sound and developing and all this nonsense. So it was absolutely liberating for me to have this DIY digital approach.
Yeah, so do you think that if you were 20 years younger and you'd grown up in the YouTube generation and you were, like YouTube had always been there, that you kind of, not treasure is probably not the word, but appreciate the ability that, say, modern technology has given you to disseminate your work more than you would if you'd never known any other way, if being a lone operator had always been available to you.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I mean, for me, it was transformative to say, as an understatement, because before, if you wanted to make a film, the only way you could get it out there was by getting into a film festival. Yeah. There was no other way for people to see it, or you actually literally got people in a room. Yeah. So I did a short film, I did a screening, I got 100 people in a room. Yeah. That was pretty good. I did my first film on YouTube. It got 300 views. Yeah. That was huge. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That sounds like, I know there's nothing compared to modern day numbers, but it's a phenomenon of people that I could never have got in a room. Yeah. And then obviously that was just the beginning. And then I did, so.
But there's a huge amount of ego involved in that's required of a director in the filmmaking process, in the collaborative filmmaking process. Yeah. To get from, to get the money together, to get the stars, to get the to get the script finished, to get it through the studio, get it produced, and all of that. And operating on your own, you are your own master, But does that have any drawbacks? Do you think?
I mean, listen. The joyful thing is, if no one's giving you any money, you don't have to answer to anyone.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I mean, is there something about that which you think sort of allows for a less tight approach, or a less disciplined approach, or something like that? I mean, how important is
it's
that?
Not less disciplined. All it means is you have less money. Yeah. So it means I have to do everything myself. Yeah. So I'm just shooting a film at the moment, and I'm doing the camera, directing, and doing the sound all at once, because I can't afford to pay anyone, nor do I really want to shell money out at this stage. It's just not appropriate. If I had the ability to get a load of cash from someone and to make a film without any restrictions, that I was answerable to no one, like Woody Allen, he has Final Cut, and you could still make that film and get a load of money, and I could hire loads of people to help me, I would do that. Yeah. I would still keep it small. Yeah. I would still do a low budget crew, in the sense that the less people around, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Right. So, but I certainly wouldn't turn my nose up here, and at some point I wouldn't mind having another go in that respect. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because in the last conversation I had with the photographer Michael Woods, he's a great collaborator. His whole thing is collaborating. I'm not a great collaborator personally. I'm much prefer being on my own. Yeah. As a photographer, and even having like an assistant around or something like that, I find distracting. Yeah. I don't even know how anybody can make anything. But I asked him the question of whether or not he was really a born collaborator, and he I think he really had to think about it, because I think a lot of photographers are lone wolves. In fact, I think they tend to prefer their own company to being amongst people.
Maybe. I would say it could attract that. I mean, I don't mind collaborating with people. It's really enjoyable to work with other people if you're getting used to work as a photographer. You do work on your own, and you shoot on your own, and you go through your work on your own. It is quite a solitary process. It's quite nice that I like making films because you get to involve actors, and even if I'm doing all the technical stuff myself, I'm still collaborating with other people. Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of. So coming along to the stills side of things, I mean, how long have you been shooting consistently stills projects as opposed to video projects? Do you think? I mean, like in you know, with like
flat out a decade.
A decade now. And what camera are you using at the moment?
I'm using an Olympus OMD EM.
Yeah.
I
know one of those. The ones that look like an old camera.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And you're full of praise for that camera.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. I mean, it's the quality of SLR, and you can fit it in your pocket. For me, I do, obviously primarily street photography, so I can't have something that's in a bag because by the time I've got it out of the bag, I have missed that moment. So for me, it's just speed. So I have a pancake lens, which is the only lens I use, and I only use that lens because it's flat enough to fit it in my pocket. And that sounds incredibly practical over artistic, but for me, photography is all about speed. Everything else you can fix afterwards. But if you miss that moment that you saw, you don't have that moment. And for me, I'm just looking to capture the things that I see.
And it is a balance between quality, like having some intrinsic quality, even if it's even if it's a pocketable camera. It's still got to have enough, sort of leeway in it to edit.
It needs. I mean, the great thing about that camera, it has a lot of welly. There's a lot of quality in there. And I used to shoot on a Panasonic Lumix, which was my first street camera, which was a fantastic camera. And also, that was my first digital camera when I really started to up my game in terms of my work. And I really owe it a lot because it helped me develop my style a bit. But this was just another step up. And also it has a touchscreen camera. You can press the screen and take a picture. You don't have to press the button. And the beautiful thing about that is you can take a picture without someone knowing. I take a lot of surreptitious pictures of people because that's the nature of street photography. You can't do it any other way. Once they're aware, again, it's over. So it has its benefits, definitely.
So I mean, the work I know of yours is often, there might be what you call typologies, where you're photographing a set of things. To begin with, your work was really about inanimate objects. I mean, there's a lot of the projects were more like, and one I'm thinking of in particular was a series you did on the texture of post boxes. On the roof. And I mean, for those of you who can imagine it, if you're depending on where you are in the world, but a British red postbox is an iconic design. I think they were designed by Gilbert Scott in Victorian times, and they've got a sort of red slightly domed roof, and over the years they build up a patina. Now, I mean, 99. I mean, there are no nines. There are not enough nines to describe how few people but would have actually noticed the top of one of these boxes. But they tell a history. And Babycakes here, this is when I sort of first saw his work, had done a complete series just looking at what had happened to the top of these red pillar boxes. Can you tell me about what, just as a glimpse into sort of the way you work, I mean, how that came about? If you
I mean, in terms of, in a very honest admission, one of the reasons I used to take pictures of inanimate objects is my camera wasn't fast enough to shoot people. And the Lumix just wasn't quick enough. So everything came out blurred, so I see an inner life of objects. I've done a whole series called Abandoned, which is chairs and sofas out in the street and TVs.
Can I just stop you there, actually, because to describe them as in the way that you're describing, which was abandoned TVs, abandoned chairs, abandoned sofas, and things like that, all is not to do them credit, because the way that Babycakes Romero has photographed these things gives them huge sadness, and there is something, and they truly are abandoned pieces. It isn't just a record of abandoned objects in the street. This is the point, isn't it? I mean, there's something.
Well, they spoke to me. They look like they've been turned out, and obviously some of these objects, especially like beds and chairs, would have been at the pride of place, at the centre of someone's existence for so many years, and they would have been part of that family unit. And and then suddenly one day they're on the street, and that's it. And it's similar with the post boxes in the sense that. You could see the degradation over the decades, and there was something that spoke to me about them, and you know.
Is there something that spoke to you about them, or did you project something onto them? Because sometimes I look at those pictures of, say, abandoned sofas, which, as you say, were at the very centre of family life. I mean, a sofa is the centre of many families' life, more so than the kitchen table now, in fact. And there's also something like anthropic or anthropomorphizing about these sofas, let's say, or TVs or whatever, which involves the human eye projecting something onto them, because in the end they're inanimate objects. They have no thoughts or feelings of their own. But in your pictures, they look totally forlorn.
Yes, exactly.
And who's doing that? Is that us or the?
You know, it's a combination, and actually what I hoped is that what I saw and felt, someone looking at the photograph might also feel the same way. Yeah. And it was basically trying to capture that experience. Yeah. And I just had a real genuine interest in, you know, things that once were and now weren't. Yeah. And also, especially with the Abandoned Object series, was that those photographs would be the last recorded moment of their existence before they were carted off. Yeah. And so it was a way to keep them alive somehow, or to preserve that moment, and to know that after that photograph was taken, they would not exist at all. Yeah. So why is that appealing? I don't know, but there was something about kind of the passage of time, and you know, there's something, you know, kind of satisfying about kind of seeing that chart, and to know that everything's obviously, you know, we feel this is a permanent and a constant, but this might all be rubble in hundreds of years. Yeah. You know, if you work on a long enough future, especially a geological one, you know, so we are here for a very fleeting moment of time. Yeah. And so the same with the post boxes. They had, you know, moss growing out of them, you know, and you could see nature reclaiming these human objects.
Well, time was becoming visible.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And the visible nature of time is actually a beautiful thing. And even though it kind of ultimately spells death and decay, really, on a long enough timeline, there's something kind of reassuring about it at the same time.
I mean, it's funny. I agree, because it's like looking at fossils, and you've got people who deny that the Earth is more than 6,500 years old or whatever, and you look at a fossil, and I always wonder what the problem is with people who just can't imagine or let their imaginations free on the idea that time is incredibly is awesomely long, but just because we're standing in a particular point in it, that if your brain can't appreciate how long that is, that for some people it just doesn't exist.
That's
you know,
right.
so it has to be 6.5, because I can imagine 6,500 years, but I can't imagine 60 million years since that animal lived and was you know, covered with mud and now perfectly preserved in, you know, fossilized. Yeah. And when you see those moments where time is obviously is clearly on its way, whether it's a sofa that's been around for 20 years and is now at the end of its very short life, or a post box which has been around for 100 years. I mean, is that something that you can kind of relate to in the way? Is that something you would think about in any way?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's entirely that. I mean, we're here for a blink of an eye. You know, you go back 60 million years, try 13.7 billion, which is basically what they've recorded back the universe as existing. Yeah. It's going to be a long time before us and a long time after. Yeah. And actually, I read a book by a guy called Len Wiseman called The World Without Us, which is a fascinating book, and it shows, if there was a hypothetical situation that if a man disappeared tomorrow, how long would it take for the Earth to rebuild itself, to claw back everything that we've done? Yeah. And long story short, it takes about 1 million years. Which seems like a long time, but it's nothing, because the Earth, 4 billion years
of humanity
in a million, a clean million, on a straight number, and it describes how there are certain places where it's already happened, like for example the area surrounding Chernobyl, and how that has grown back, and how wildlife has grown back, and fauna, and it is a world without us, and we're so human-centric. And actually, it's fascinating just to kind of open your eyes to a slightly bigger geological history. Do you know what I mean? You know, and I think about that shit a lot. You know, it's like, you know.
I just hope the meerkats don't take over in that million years.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
They look pretty alert. So I want to break there for a second, okay? Because we're going to talk about the second half, not the second half, but the next phase of your photography. Okay, so just 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay. When I come back, I'm going to be talking to Babycakes Romero about his viral sensation, The Death of Conversation, how it came about, and where it took him. Enjoy. Hello? Yeah, okay. So we've talked about the sort of, kind of, let's say up to the first phase of your stills photographic life, and I will give details about how everybody can access your work, and hopefully we'll be able to show some of your pictures alongside the podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about the Olympus OMD briefly, or not that briefly, but we talked about that. And the latter stage of your work, or the more recent stage of your work, has been much more about people. I mean, I would say, just as an observer, it tends to be more about people. And you mentioned that the way that Olympus has the sort of touchscreen which allows you to get in close and things like that. And would you say that having that camera gave you the ability to get in close, and therefore the sort of work that you do now opened up to you in a way that it wouldn't have before? Or would you have done it, do you think it was the way you were going anyway?
It was a total game changer.
Oh, right, okay.
Instantly.
Right.
Because suddenly I could.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
And, would I have done it anyway? You always need the tools, even if I'd had the intention.
Yeah.
But it really did change things a lot. And, when I first got it, I just used to run around town snapping people because I just wanted to see what I could get away with. Yeah. And I quite like, for me, there is nothing more pleasurable than getting a shot of someone and them not knowing about it. Yeah. Do you know? So not that there's something devious about it, but you have an opportunity to capture someone when they have their guard down. Yeah. And we live in a world of photos on social media when everyone's got the fixed screen, and it's a moment out of reality. Yeah. They've stopped what they're doing to take the picture and to smile and give their best side, and then they've gone back, to what they were doing. When you take someone's photograph and they're not aware of it, you get an opportunity to see their inner life. Mm-hmm. And invariably you can see something beyond the mask, something a little bit sadder, a little bit more reflective. You see a little bit of, the tragedy of human existence and the hardship that goes with that. Mm-hmm. And there's something incredibly comforting about seeing it in someone else. Right. And I'll be honest with you, recently I have had some moral quandaries about taking photographs of people. Right. Just because it is invasive to a degree, and obviously I put a lot of pictures up online, without consent, but I am allowed to do that by the law. I have checked, I still think, should I be doing it? As an artist, you always question what you're doing and why you're doing it. But the conclusion I came to after this kind of quandary was that if I get an opportunity to show that, what I've just described, to show that inner life and to somehow, if it's comforting to me, it might be comforting to others, and it might connect us all a little bit better, so we don't all have to pretend it's all rosy and fantastic. We can actually see that we're all struggling with the same stuff. Yeah. And that, I think, is the beauty of photography, and that is why I think I will be driven to do it for always, because you get that opportunity, and we never get a chance to really study someone's face in real life because it's socially inappropriate. But in a photograph, you can gawp at it for as long as you want. Yeah. And if the photograph is good and you've caught that person in that moment, you can see so much more. Yeah.
I mean, I sometimes have the same quandary, although I beat it down with a big stick because
of course you have to.
I can't, but I do believe in a way that we steal people's souls. A little bit of somebody's soul. You know, primitive people say.
I know the Aborigines.
Well, I think you do. I think, and I'll tell you why I think you do. Okay, is because if you take a picture of somebody without their permission or whatever in the public domain, wherever they are, you're assuming a certain amount of control over them. Okay, a little part of them, you're assuming a tiny amount of control over them by replicating their picture online or whatever. and it's not in a way which is invasive in the traditional sense of their privacy. I mean it in the sense that there's a little bit of them, or you, if it's you that's the subject, that has been appropriated by somebody else, and that is out there. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there are degrees of this, you know, but on the whole, if you take a picture of something, and it's just something that plays on my mind sometimes, that if very few people take pictures of me, but if I'm taking pictures of somebody else, or if I do see that I'm in in the scene of a picture, which I'm not necessarily complicit in, it's almost a mind game that I play. You know, how much of that is you know, it's almost like the butterfly effect. It's just a thing that exists out there. And I think that everybody should think about that in a way, you know.
Yeah, and I think if you were a photographer and you didn't think about that, that would be weird. Yeah. Because it's such a big part of what you do. But at some point you have to go through the mental process and come out the other end and decide whether you want to continue with it or not, and whether you feel it's important enough to do, and whether it has a genuine purpose and it's not exploitative and it's not about, do you know what I mean? You know, if you can come to those conclusions and they're positive ones, you can carry on. Yeah. If not, you better go do something else. You know?
No, I mean, okay, so let's talk about what happened last year. I mean, I suppose we're in 2016 now. The story is 2014, 2015. And it's a series of Babycakes Romero's pictures that were titled "The Death of Conversation," and I'll just give a brief sort of they were about how we use our technology now when normally we would be connected to the people around us, and how often it is that you see groups of people where one person's on the phone completely ignoring and in a different world to the person that they're physically next to. So that I mean, is that do you want to correct that or whatever?
No, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, I started taking pictures of people on smartphones because visually it looked great. There was a symmetry to them. They were identical together but completely separate, you know. And then over time I started to see that actually sometimes when one person was on it and the other person wasn't, that you could see how they were being marginalized and the technology was being favored over them. And you could kind of see the pain in their face, you know. And I just started to, you know, photograph it more and more, and I saw it obviously everywhere, and it was a genuine social phenomena that we've never seen before. It was absolutely worth documenting. And so I put a series of pictures together quite quickly, and then just put them online. And
so before we go on, because these pictures became, as a collection, became a viral sensation. It wasn't just one picture that became a viral sensation. It was the whole group of them. And could you just say what the beginning of that was? I mean, how did that actually begin? Because I think a lot of people out there, not that everybody's aiming to have a viral sensation, and I don't think you certainly weren't. I mean, as far as
not at all. I mean, I put the series of photographs up on my website. I have an ongoing daily series, and it was part of a blog post. And then I think it was about 6 months later, I put them on a site called Bored Panda.
Right.
And
what's Bored Panda?
It's like one of those magazine catchment sites. You know, you can upload your own work, and it can be anything on there, you know, and it's just one of those kind of magazine sites. I mean, everything's, you know, they're all kind of the same these days, but it's self-generated content, and you can upload without approval.
Oh, right.
So it goes up, and that's it.
And it like goes onto their front page and then...
Well, it just goes up, and then people can find it. If it starts to do well, then other people see it. Like anything, if it starts to trend, you know, people start, you know, the more people like it, the more it goes up the ranks, and the more people see it, and then it, you know, extrapolates outwards. And it just blew up. It just went nuts really, really quickly.
And suddenly, can I just stop you there? Because at the stage that we're at now, you uploaded them to Bored Panda. Okay, just on a whim sort of thing, just because, you know, for whatever reason. And then at some point in the future, you're standing on a stage giving a TED talk about these pictures and with them projected behind you, and this talk has gone all over the world, in a sense gone viral itself.
That's right.
So in between the upload and the TED talk, what happened? Because it was an extraordinary series of events.
You know, the numbers just started going crazy on Bored Pandas. So within a week, it'd been seen by 500,000 people.
Right.
It's clocked up about nearly 1 million views just on that one site. And then it just went everywhere. It went around the world, every country, every website. I was just getting requests every day. People were But
from websites to access to the picture.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people just put it up without permission. A lot of people asked me, and then it got picked up, and suddenly I was getting contacted by the Washington Post, Huffington Post, Sky News, BBC, you know, Telegraph. Everyone just heard of it. It just spread, and it was, they talk about a virus. That's how it goes, and it gains momentum. You know, and obviously, it became viral because smartphones are ubiquitous in every society. I mean, actually, the first country it went off in was Colombia. I don't know why.
What?
But I got all these requests from Colombia, and it all started in South America. And then every day with just more requests.
I mean, that's interesting in itself. I mean, why would it?
It's just a fluke, no reason. Do you know what I mean? But it was, it went to Eastern Europe. It went everywhere, and it just at different stages. So it just whenever they heard about it, and whoever then shared it. But it has been seen by millions of people. Yeah. Which is obviously a few more zeros than a lot of my other work.
And mine and everybody else.
It was a thrill ride. It was hugely enjoyable, and I was doing interviews every day, and it was nice to have the opportunity to talk about my work and what it meant.
So in that you actually, because you don't own a smartphone. So
no.
And as far as I was concerned, it wasn't so much a reaction against smartphones. It was just that it would never occur to you to own one. If when everybody else had one, you just didn't want one.
Yeah, I mean, I saw how invasive they were, which is why I didn't want one.
Yeah.
I saw how time-consuming they were. I saw how engaging they were, and I saw how it was separating people.
Right.
And I really like interacting with human beings. I really like reality, and I spend a lot of time at home working on a computer. I don't really need one when I'm out. And I'd much rather engage with the world around me. And I just thought looking down at a 3-inch screen just wasn't that much fun, And like I say, I could see that I would be the same as everyone else. It wasn't like I thought I was better than anyone else. I knew once I had it in my hand, I'd be the same. You'd be on it. Yeah. Why wouldn't you be, So I just, that was why I didn't want one.
What do you think it was that made it so popular? Because in a way, it's like, isn't it, selling coals to Newcastle or something like that? I mean, the people that are picking it up are not people like you who object to the smartphone.
Yeah,
it's people who all have them and are using them in this way. I mean, it's
I actually don't think they know how to put them down. I think it's very addictive. I mean, when I looked into it, especially when I was doing the interviews, and I actually started to really look into the idea of what was actually happening and what the process was going on. And a lot of it is driven by the need for stimulation. They're dopamine chasers. They're looking for a fix. Every time you look at your phone, you get a little dopamine hit, and they become addicted to that. And it's also very ego-driven. Everything on your phone is about you. Every single thing. And the world isn't about you. You're an ant. You know what I mean? You're nothing.
So do you think it's like a sort of a mother thing? I mean, it's like you getting some kind of reassurance from the phone that you're the most important person in the world.
Yes, it makes you feel wanted and special. And when you look at that phone, you will find tiny little something to remind you of that. And we've all wanted that our whole lives. We've none of us have had it enough. So that's what people are chasing.
I know that as a user of a as an iPhone, and with various accounts and things like that, and some of which I'm more into than others. But the only thing that excites me about it is when something that I've written or posted has in some ways been interacted with by somebody else. and it just goes straight to my ego.
Of course.
I really couldn't give a fuck about anything else because it isn't. It's not important right there and then. If I've written a direct tweet to somebody and they've got back to me and I wasn't sure they would, all of my concentration is on that thing. I don't care who's around me.
It is very engaging, you know. And also, especially if you're doing creative work, to get any response back is what we're all craving, because you don't want to exist in a vacuum, you know. And
I think that's different, though. I think if you're doing creative work, I think that there is a difference between. We can come on to this actually, because I don't want it to be so much part of the depth of conversation, because that's what this is about, though, isn't it? I mean, it's about people not talking anymore.
Yeah.
But the creative thing is that these people aren't all creating something and hoping that somebody else is going to notice something.
That is something. That is literally just for that dopamine hit of someone's thought of me, someone cares about me. But you can get painfully addicted to that at the expense of the real world and real interactions with real human beings, where you would get that for real.
Yeah.
And that the problem is with that dopamine hit from the phone is it's very fleeting, and once you've had one, you want another. It's very unsatisfactory, and you crave it, and it's never enough. I got addicted to Instagram when I first started because I love those little orange hearts.
Yeah.
Every time I saw one, and I was checking it 30 times a day.
Yeah.
And the only way I was able to break that is actually I take a month off doing anything. I always take August off, and I don't post anything up. And I have a social media break, and I have a photography break. And I try and live, because I think it's very important not just to live and not just document. And in that month of first joining Instagram, and I didn't go on it for a month, and I was able to break it. And now I look at it twice a day.
Yeah.
But the little orange hearts was like, oh my God, every time you get a little you get a flutter in your heart, you know, it is really powerful.
Yeah. So let's, the death of conversation, okay, is moving around the world like a proper airborne virus. And so when did, when did you move from being an observer to a sort of a protester, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I ended up becoming a bit of a poster boy for the anti-tech brigade, which wasn't my intention at all. Yeah. And I'm very much not anti-technology, double negative. But I love technology. I just don't like the repercussions that it has for human interaction. And they are very real and genuine, and it is making a lot of people miserable. And so, but the tech itself is amazing. And sometimes when my girlfriend's iPhone, and she does all this amazing things on it, and she can do things, and I was like, wow, I had no idea they could do this. It is kind of enticing, but I still don't want one. Do you know what I mean? And for me, the cons are more than the pros.
But but by the time you started getting interviewed about this, and let's talk about so when you got the TED Talk, you weren't just going to stand up there and say, well, I'm a photographer and I take pictures of what I see all around me, end of story, thank you very much.
No,
you're going to have to say something a little bit more.
Absolutely, and as I was saying, when I started to get interviewed, I started to look into the process of what actually was going on, what I was photographing, and I dug deeper and deeper and deeper, and I started doing research on it, and it revealed this whole modern experience, and it is absolutely happening, and I became quite passionate about it. And it wasn't about being preachy or judgmental. It was just to say, this is what's happening, and also just that, I'd also been doing some stuff with mindfulness and showing how that to really get the most out of existence, you really have to be present in the moment. And phones are just a huge barrier to that. And so I looked into that, I looked into multitasking and how that was complete nonsense, and how we can't do two things at once.
Well, we don't multitask, do
No,
we?
You just flick very rapidly between one and the other. So you're not getting the most. So we're having these very fragmented, shallow experiences when life could be much deeper and more rewarding than that,
But and actually, in a sense, all photographers are mindful of the moment. I mean, it's something we take for granted, I think. Nobody, in a way, nobody really appreciates that. In order to take a picture, you live in the moment. you said that in August you don't take any pictures. Just what's that about?
Well, actually, that's a lie. Actually, I don't post any pictures. I take my, I have a daily blog. I put a photograph a day. My London series. And August I do nothing. I don't post anything up, and I genuinely try to photograph less. Because you shouldn't always have the eye. I mean, I never go out looking for photographs, even when I am photographing. But sometimes obviously, if I saw something spectacular, I wouldn't leave it alone. I would not take that picture. I always have my camera with me, even in August. I'm not leaving the house without it. You're joking. What if I saw something? It'd be out. But I'm not as focused on it. I drop it down a peg.
But don't you think? Cartier-Bresson used to say that he didn't need a camera to take pictures. He could take them in his mind.
Yeah, and actually, someone asked me why I take photographs, and I said because I see photographs.
Right.
And once you see it, you can't let it go. And so all I do is try and recapture what my mind had already taken in some ways, and that's why I never take it from a different angle. I always take it from the position I saw it in originally. I stay very pure to my original observation.
So do you think in some big circular way there is a link between the frame, you say you see photographs, okay, and those frames that your uncle sent you when you were a kid, and that things were framed up, and that you began to see things like, at that stage?
I'm all about composition,
right.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be in camera, because obviously, the wonderful world of digital, I take things wide, I will crop in, do you know what I mean? But I am building storyboard frames in some ways, yes.
Yeah, I wonder. Which would link in with the moving work, work that you do and all of that, because that's certainly something I noticed in your work. But let's. I think we should finish, because we could go on forever now. But and I don't want to give the impression to anybody that the death of conversation is in any way the apotheosis of your work. It goes on and it rolls on, and we'll be putting up lots of links and lots of ways to see Babycakes Romero's work online. But can you give us an idea about what you're up to now? I mean, you've had the TED Talk. I mean, what happened with the TED Talk? Let's just finish with the TED Talk, because that's the moment when I think you became a protester. I know that you've been interviewed lots of times, but the moment when somebody says write something and deliver it is the moment, and I know this from in other ways, but is the moment you stop being a sort of commentator and start having a point of view, as it were.
I suppose.
And that's an odd thing for an observer to.
And actually, I was quite unsure whether I wanted to do it or not, because I want to remain an observer. I don't want to be out there, and I don't even use my real name. It was a big concern of mine that my face.
Babycakes Romero isn't your real name.
Fortunately not. It's not.
All these years.
I wish it was. I might change my default one day, but for now, it's my alter ego, and I really want to keep my anonymity. And if I was honest with you, I don't even like the fact it's out there. I did it because it was an opportunity not to give up. And I really wanted to get that message across of all the stuff that I'd learned about smartphones and the negative impact they'd had, and that was a way to do it. So that's why I did that, for no other reason. If I talked to them about doing it behind a screen and not even having my face visible, or wearing a mask or something, but that would have just distracted the talk. So I didn't do it, but I would have done that if I'd had the opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. How much money have you made out of the series?
Not very much.
Right. Is that interesting?
Basically there was very early on when everyone was asking for permission to use it, but it was very clear that no one wanted to pay, and I had a quick decision to make. Do I have the work out there and not get paid, or do I hold on to it and just filter it out and get paid accordingly to a select few? I made a decision. I'm not monetary driven. I just wanted to work out there. I did get paid by 3 or 4 people. Considering.
But given the number of millions of people who've seen your pictures.
And Boar Panda made a fucking fortune off all the pop-up ads on my page.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, and there is this what's the word? Is this trade-off?
Paradox,
Well, it's a trade-off with the modern artist in terms of the internet, because you can get your work out there, but you're not going to get paid, and other people might make money off you.
Yeah.
But they will give you the platform to do it. So the question is, do you want to do it or not? Why are you doing it? What's the reason? I would like the money. It'd be great if everyone, it was on 200 websites plus. Yeah. If everyone had paid me, I'd be loaded. But that wasn't what was important to me.
Because if you on YouTube, if you had a viral sensation on YouTube, you could monetize it, couldn't you? I mean,
although I have to say I've chosen not to do that as well.
Right.
I deliberately don't have adverts on my videos, even though my YouTube channel has had about 250,000 views. Right. I could have made money from that. I choose not to.
Right. Okay.
I don't want adverts on my stuff.
So you're not in the sort of camp of photographers who are almost militant about changing the way images are reproduced.
No, I'm with them. It absolutely should happen.
Right.
You know, but it's, you know, we live in this kind of this era of the internet when things kind of got locked down, and we need to unlock them and try and. I mean, YouTube's a very good way of showing how it could be monetized, and. You know, they talk about these kind of micro payments that you could have, that every time something was on, you know, like, you know, on Spotify, if you have a track, you get 0.00 whatever. They can have the same with photographs. But the problem is that because everyone's a photographer, everyone's got an iPhone, they don't need to pay for it because someone wants to give it up for free. Yeah. And it is this, it is a battle. And
there's a difference though, isn't there, between you going out and shooting, you know, concertedly shooting pictures of people who are disconnected in company, if you like, and somebody just takes a lucky shot of a pig humping a rabbit or something like that. You know, I mean,
I've seen that.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
I haven't seen it. I want to see it.
I've seen a cat dressed as a monkey eating a banana. That which is basically the pinnacle of human civilization. Yeah. It really is. I saw that the other day and I was like, fuck, is that really where we've got to? Anyway, but moving on, you know, I don't think it is the same. Anyway, the fact of the matter is they can get it for free, so they do, you know, and we are complicit in that. You know?
We are complicit in that because all photographers want to be seen. And of course that's important, but there is a growing movement of people who say that photographers should never work for free, you know, should never give anything away for free, because people like Huffington Post, people like Bored Panda, I mean, you know, I don't know about them specifically, but they at the moment they have to do nothing to put up that work, and because, as you say, people have got phones and they just chuck the stuff up and there's nothing to them.
That's right. I mean, you know, we kind of live in strange times. I mean, I have to say though, I mean, you could talk about my other work. You know, my long ongoing project is this series called My London, which is a daily photograph which I put up, and that goes up on my website. But I also put it on. The picture goes on Twitter and Instagram, and you know, and it spreads out there. And I've been doing it for a few years. Yeah. But the reason I started that series is because I had all these photographs languishing on a hard drive. You know, what I would call digital purgatory, doing nothing. Yeah. And I looked at them and they looked at me back and they were like, why did you even take us? Yeah. And for me, if it's not out there, it doesn't exist. And I really do feel you need to, you know, if you're an artist, you want to get your work out there. And it's, to me personally, more important to have it out there than to get paid.
So if you had the vote today to monetize it as a sort of a thing, as a sort of, you know, mandatory monetization or not, which way would you vote?
Well, if mandatory monetization meant I couldn't put up work for free,
that's right.
then no, I wouldn't go with that.
Right, okay.
I want that freedom. Okay. I don't,
Well, look, Babycakes Romero, thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome. And, it was a pleasure. Thanks.
And I'm going to put up lots of you know, the links to your My London daily feed and everything else, and some pictures as well. But that has been really good. And then we have to shake hands, even though it's on.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Alex. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And the more you get in touch with us, give us feedback, rate us, whatever you like, helps me to get better and better. I know that my presentation at the moment is slightly lacking, but I am working on it. In fact, thanks to Lena Sailholt, who is a voice coach and a singing teacher who has already got back to me, I'm taking some lessons and trying to improve my diction and articulation. So you can find a link even to Lena's website in the notes accompanying this podcast. So please don't hesitate to get back to us. Until next time, thanks for listening to Photographica. Goodbye.